Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we've got some really big news today. A dev blog by Creative Assembly which introduces what exactly we're supposed to expect from patches going forward. There's a message from Creative Assembly regarding this patch, the updates going forward. Not only that, but we actually find out what's coming in patch 5.2 where we're going to be seeing some more reworks, including something else for the Dwarfs, which is kind of funny, a Chaos Cult rework, which a lot of people have been waiting for, and some new mechanics overall. So yeah, let's get started, shall we? Let's start off with the message from Creative Assembly. Hi everyone, I'm Mitchell, Design Director on Total War Warhammer 3, and today I want to share with you some of the things I've been working on. This will be a developer diary that gives you a look into what is coming as part of patch 5.2, and this time around I'll also talk a little bit wider than that about what to expect going forward for our updates and how you can help shape them. First though, a bit of backstory. When I think back to the very first DLC we ever made for the Total War Warhammer trilogy, Call of the Beastmen, there was a moment where Rich and I discussed adding the moon cycle mechanic to the race. At this time, this seemed like a tiny addition, and indeed it was compared to the kind of features we do now, but I always consider that moment monumental as, for me, it was the first instance of us pushing a boundary, trying to do something a little bit different that we hadn't done before to add more than was originally planned, and we did it just because it was cool. We thought players would like it, and we wanted the DLC to be as special as it could be. I think that it's the moment that set us on the path to try to do more for all new content, to keep pushing our own expectations for what new content for the game could be, to always be on the lookout for what special idea we could do next. I really do believe that it's the precedent that created a mindset for what's got us here now with the absolutely insane scale of content we have. This way of working to always be pushing meant that over the years we tried a lot of new things. Some didn't work so well, others were massive successes, but all the while our content was growing in scope and complexity and we were learning. This, you will know by now, has had a few effects. I think our content got better over time, which is fantastic, but this improvement has meant that the content we created in the past grows more outdated as time progresses, either because it was made without the knowledge, lessons, or technology we now have. This is where your and our desire for the old content to be reworked and updated comes from. Not failure, but progress and success. It's something we've been cognizant of for a long time, hence our many reworks and updates. It's something we want to continue to do going forward. I think it's a blessing to be able to have such a vivid view of how you as a designer and as a team have improved in your craft over the better part of a decade. But of course, that does mean we have some work to do. Let's talk about that work. So yeah, okay, this does sound quite good. It does have a lot of truth to it because the scope and scale of the franchise has changed over the years. That's why if you look towards the races of Game 1 before their reworks, compare them to Race 2, they're very different, drastically different in terms of playstyle and mechanics and so on, and then further on when you look towards Game 3. So bringing everything finally online with Game 3 is the plan, it seems, and that's a good thing because, oh boy, some of them do need it, and in just general it would be better if everything was in the final scope. Alright, updates going forward, let's talk about this. You will have heard the team talk about what's next in our recent YouTube video, aptly titled Total War Warhammer 3, What's Next? Watch that here if you haven't already. In that video, you'll have heard, among other things, that our plan is to bring more to our game updates that fall in between our DLC releases, just like patch 5.2 does. These updates will allow us to tackle the things we are less likely to do as part of an upcoming DLC. As you will have gleaned from my intro, this will be things like updating older features, or at times even updating races. Oh, cool, so race reworks here too. Nice. But primarily focused in areas of the game that we recognize haven't been priorities in the past or were likely to be in the future. That sounds a bit odd. That last little sentence sounds a little bit odd to me. I'm not sure why. It's also extremely important for us that we are reacting to what you want, particularly when looking to update older content, but more on that in a bit. Alongside updating our older content, I also want to make sure for each update we're providing something new. Sometimes that will be something really small, or in the case of patch 5.2, something a bit bigger, as you'll see in just a moment. But for every release, I'm hoping that we can provide you with a fresh experience in some way. Yeah, that works. It doesn't always have to be like a big rework or something, just a fix here and there, something new to kinda update the Beastmen, or I don't know, I'm just throwing the Beastmen out there, the High Elves or the Dark Elves, until they get like a proper full rework. Something like that would be great. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about that. Let's continue. It's important to know that these aren't DLC level additions or changes, and while we have people dedicated to these updates, including me, the wider team is hard at work at developing the DLCs that make these updates possible. Deciding what goes into each of these updates is very much centered around what players are asking for, but also what we have planned and are making in the future, and the feasibility of developing these ideas. For you, as a player, that could mean you see the number 2 and 3 things on your personal wishlist added, updated or fixed, but you wonder why we've not tackled number 1. That could be because we have plans to do it going forward elsewhere, or because it simply is too difficult to tackle in one of these updates for any number of reasons. Almost never because we are unaware or haven't seen your feedback. It's not an exaggeration to say that sometimes what might be number 1 on your wishlist may take the same effort as the 9 other items in your top 10. It's something we as developers are constantly grappling with, and hopefully we can communicate why we chose to do certain things going forward, just as I will do in this dev diary. So yeah, some things cost more, some things just a lot more work. That's understandable. What's really interesting to note here is that the big DLCs are allowing for these updates to happen. That actually does mean that Thrones of Decay did incredibly well and is allowing for more dev time to go into something that really isn't going to make money. Let's be honest there, because you're not really buying another product when a free update comes out. This does actually make me a little bit happier. Yeah, if these DLCs, these massive DLCs are making the cash needed to support the game more, this is going to be very good for the future of the game. Remember, it wasn't too long ago, well, just about a year ago, where we had the whole such as the cost of supporting Warhammer 3. But if the actual content is worth it and is supporting the game, yeah, all for it. Alright, the content. Patch 5.2 will come with bug fixes and other small changes and additions, but primarily it has 4 major components and a few surprises I won't mention here. A new feature for the Dwarfs, the Deeps, a rework for the Chaos Cult feature, this is the one that I'm most excited about to be honest, a new small global feature, unusual locations, and an update to Cafe's, Ivory Road feature. Alright, so in the spirit of this being a developer diary, I'll go through the top 3 today as those are the ones that I've been developing, but for the Ivory Road update, you can expect changes that will bring them more in line with the Chaos Dwarfs combat feature. Yes! 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 Oh, I'm so happy about that. That's fucking great, man. That's awesome. The cafe caravans were okay, you know, but then when the Chaos Dwarf came out, they had a better system. If they're gonna get something like that, that's golden. That's freaking golden. Awesome. Awesome. You'll likely know this already, but what you're about to see is work in progress. All text, art, balancing, well, in fact, pretty much everything you see is not only possible to change, but at this stage, quite likely too. We're showing you things a little bit earlier than we normally would. Hopefully you would enjoy that, but do keep in mind it comes with more caveats. Oh, and if you're wondering why there's pink icons, yeah, those are the placeholder ones. This is good. I like this. You see, a lot of people have been asking for developer diaries in a very similar way to what Paradox does, I believe, with Stellaris and a few others. That's more or less what people have been asking for years. So if this is going to become the norm and we're going to start seeing developer diaries like this every now and then, yeah, I'm super happy. Communication like this is what people have always been wanting, and it's always good when a developer does that, mostly because it shows that, yeah, things are actually happening, and it gets us an insider view of what to kind of expect. That's always great. It's been a bit of a drought lately, so this makes the droughts feel a little bit smaller. So we're going to talk about the Dwarfs first. This is the Deeps, the new Dwarf feature. Dwarfs, they just had an update. That's what you're thinking. Yes, I can read minds. And as I mentioned, I'll give you some idea of why we chose what we do. In this case, there was a fair amount of feedback for Dwarfs based on their last update that some consider their overall playstyle to be fairly aggressive and focused on expansionists, or wide playstyle. Not too surprising given this is Total War after all, but it's a fair point that the fantasy of the Dwarfs is a more defensive and tall one, Trying my hardest to avoid any short jokes here. All right. Yeah, fair play. Ultimately, the aim with this feature is to provide more opportunity for playing taller, perhaps investing more in fewer settlements, and making what you do have tougher to take. And the best thing is, if you want to keep doing what you're doing, this feature is optional. Okay, good. This is a thing. We're just jumping in here. Features should really be optional. It's always a big thing, especially when it comes to Total War. People want to play aggressive. I love that they're going more lore-friendly when it comes to the Dwarfs, but obviously in this case, gameplay trumps lore. But this is good. Optional is great. So let's just continue over here. It really is playstyle dependent, and I like to think this feature rounds off one of the last rough edges of the Dwarfs, and we wanted to take this chance to do that before we move on to other areas of the game. So what's this feature all about? All Dwarf factions will have access to the deeps, essentially the deeper locations of their hold. In gameplay terms, this provides you with more room to build with extra building slots, and a completely separate building tree that allows a few different bits of gameplay with things you can't do with your traditional building options. There are some limiting factors though, and heavy investment is required to develop your deeps. This isn't just pure power spike for the Dawi. Okay. You'll gain access to the deeps at any settlement you own by constructing the Great Gate, the entrance that links the surface world with the deeps. It's important to note, though, digging to such depths is costly and time-consuming. You're going to need permission from the High King to be expending such resources, and you'll need to develop your existing deeps locations before you can expand to more. Belegar and VIKRAM have small bonuses in this regard. Belegar, because he's already received permission to reconquer 8 peaks, and VIKRAM because he's the High King, duh. Okay, so they're going to have better access to deeps, and you can't build extra deeps until you start expanding. It does look here in this small image, it's 10,000. Keep in mind that obviously that is just a tester. We don't know if that's going to change in terms of how much it's going to cost. And to be able to finish off the deeps, you'll have to get to tier 5. So yeah, it's going to be an investment time. Okay, I kind of like the idea of this. No, this actually sounds legitimately quite good. Below you can see the building trees of the deeps. I won't go through every building, but I'll show you a couple of cool ones. Before that though, eagle-eyed viewers will notice the build slots appear to be blocked. That is because they are. There are a number of quirks involved with expanding downwards, notably blocked tunnels, which need to be dealt with. Again, here are the trade-offs of using the feature. There are also some of the stranger things you can discover in the deeps, but I'll leave those for you to find. Alright, this looks really interesting actually. So you have to expand on it, and it's basically an extra tier 3 settlement. Yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense for the Dwarfs. I think someone mentioned this a long time ago. It actually might have been Legend of Total War. So this does really fit with the theme. Oh my god, look, actually, some of them are just like, there's a building, if you go in the infrastructure section, obviously, you've got 2 choices before it goes up to like the 3rd tier, and some of them just don't go up to a 3rd tier. This looks really good. This actually looks really, really good. And to be able to actually unblock the tunnels, you need to upgrade the entrance hall building, which obviously makes a lot of sense. Oh, and you will also need certain technology. Yeah, interesting. Interesting. This is a really good take on basically what happens with dwarven holds. They're supposed to be massive as you go into the mountains, into the underground. So, yeah, I'm really, I'm actually surprised. Okay, we have a little bit more here. Just 2 of the building choices you'll have include the guild foundries, for those who, like me, enjoy a nice bit of turtling. And also you can now seal your hold to become the most defensive, stubborn little settlement of all the old world. Just as it should be. Good luck in displacing a sufficiently annoyed dwarf. So the foundries give you more income per turn, increase your research rate, generate oathstone, yes, more buildings that generate oathstone, good. And recruitment cost is reduced, but it will also reduce your settlement income per settlement old in the local region. That makes sense, that's fine. I'm actually really happy. And then seal the hold. Okay, this one's really interesting. So you're basically just closing it off. You get more protection stuff, extra ammunition, defensive supplies, and if you have 5 or fewer settlements, so there is a extra thing, you get more bonuses. However, you get less growth, diplomatic relations as a negative with dwarfs and other factions. I'm not too keen on that, but I guess it makes sense that you have one area, maybe at the entrance where the Docklands are. You're dealing with a lot of Chaos Dwarfs attacking you, but you're trying to push into the old world. You can have that there to just be your defensive line. Yeah, I see the use here. I like the idea. overall, very happy. This looks like it's going to be a very good feature. Alright, now the one that I'm very excited about, because obviously I play a lot of Chaos. Chaos Cults, the feature rework. We just saw something new with the Deeps feature, and as I mentioned earlier, we're looking to both add and update where possible. So next up, we'll talk about the rework for the Chaos Cults feature coming in patch 5.2. Worth noting before we jump in, everything you see applies to all 4 Chaos Gods who utilize cults. Yes! Okay, good. I was worried that my Slaanesh boys were going to be ignored. So, why Chaos Cults? Well, we've seen a lot of feedback on cults since their inception in Warhammer 3's release, and truth, they never really hit the mark. There's a number of things that I'd highlight as the cornerstones of the issues: availability, interactivity, and usefulness. Let's go through each of these. Availability of cults was an issue because the requirements of high corruption to spawn a cult was too difficult to achieve, just in general. But also even harder to specifically target locations with corruption if there was somewhere in particular you wanted cults to appear. We're tackling this by doing away with the corruption trigger of the cults entirely. Instead, the method of spreading cults will now be the cultist agent for all the Chaos factions. This is how it works with Slaanesh before, and it's just the optional gameplay, to be honest. So it's present for everyone now. Ultimately, the fantasy is that the cults create the corruption, not the other way around. Okay, I want to clap, but I'm not going to because it peaks the microphone. I love this. If it's going to focus the Slaanesh Pro out, that's great. Essentially, that means that you can spawn a cultist, make him go into a sea lane, go to the other side of the world, start spreading cults there. Wham, bam, thank you, man. That's great. Okay, I'm really happy for this because it helps Khorne a bit. It does help Tzeentch also. This is going to be fantastic. You'll see all Chaos Cultists have the established Chaos Cult agent action, but there's also something extra, the Cult Magus. The Cult Magus is a new campaign-only version of the Cult Agent, and they can create special cult locations that have extra building options and innate benefits. Like all other campaign-only agents, they'll disappear when using their agent action. As you can imagine, the Cult Magus is now managing the cult he's just established, so you can't reuse him. You'll get a new Cult Magus from establishing and sufficiently developing a standard Chaos Cult. Okay, so you build a normal cult, you build that up, and you'll get a Magus, then you can send them out to establish a special cult. That's great! That's freaking great! Yeah, I'm super keen on that. That is really cool. I'm not showing the images of, like, the cultist, because it literally just, it's the, like, thing that just says increased mobility, established cult, blah blah blah. But yeah, I'm fairly keen on this already. This sounds really good to me. This means that the more cults you have, the more special cults you'll get. Well, if you use it, I know a lot of this was optional for people. You wouldn't really use cults unless it popped up, and sometimes you just flat out ignore them. Hopefully this is now the reason that we're going to start seeing cults more often. The design for interactivity level of cults clearly erred on the side of passiveness as release. Spawning them was largely out of your hands and not much could dislodge them. We flipped that on its head to make them more interactive, both when using them and indeed when they're used against you. It'll be no surprise we do this with discoverability feature first. Oh my god, my cat. First used with the Skaven Undercities. Essentially, building more makes you more discoverable to the region owner, with certain buildings making you more or less discoverable, some revealing you instantly and some others destroying the cult. As the region owner, you can discover cults in the usual ways with agents or buildings. Once a cult is discovered, it can be removed in the usual way. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so this is literally just taking from the Skaven mechanic, which is a great thing. I'm not being negative here, because at the end of the day, Skaven Undercities, very good system, which could be improved a little bit further, mind you. But yeah, this is great. Let's continue. The usefulness of existing cults was hit or miss. Certain building options were great, others less so. Cults now have more than doubled in their building choices. Oh, and they also come with 2 slots instead of 1, or 3 in the case of a cult established by a Magus. The buildings are broken down into 4 categories. The machinations of a cult focus more on going on the benefit from the cult's presence. Corruption, which is of course focused on corrupting the region. Rituals, which are focused on providing one-off benefits, usually resulting in destruction or discovery of the cult. And finally, the cult Magus unique building options, which come with a ritual that is stronger than all others, and the cult Magus chambers, which can help hide your cult. Below you can see Tzeentch cult buildings. Obviously ignore the missing icon issues. Yep, I mean that's the this, by the way, this is something really interesting for you guys. Sometimes when we're given early access, it's like those icons until they get added in. It's actually kind of funny. So you guys get to see a little bit of that too. All cults now have access to the teleportation ritual. Previously, only Khorne could do this, but it was the one that the few people really enjoyed, so yeah, now it's available to everyone. There are 36 buildings across all cults, too many to show here, but in general, you will see Tzeentch focus on his many tricks and grimoires, Khorne on war, killing and skulls, Slaanesh on seduction, of course, and Nurgle on plagues, and how to benefit even more from them. Some examples of the building choices. We'll talk about that in just a second. I like this. The fact that we're finally getting everyone to have teleportation will be really good for Slaanesh if you're suffering a little bit there in the Orphan and the Donuts. For Kairos, I feel like it's going to be quite good too, and it's just going to be good for you to launch invasions. Yeah, overall, fairly content with this. It's sounding really good. I'm honestly really impressed. And here are some building examples. So you got the Ritual of Summoning, which is, summons, destroys the building, but it sends your faction leader over there, so great for starting wars. One for Tzeentch here, which is Grimoires per turn. You lose that, but it changes the cost of the changing of weights. Faction-wide? Holy shit. Huh. 80, minus 80 seems a bit powerful. But no, that's great. That's great. Even though the discoverability is quite high. Ritual of Blood. War will be declared on a random faction. Instantly replenish all units faction-wide. Ooh, like that. Yeah, I like that. Ritual of Excess. Settlement owner instantly gains plus 200 seductive influence upon completion. Instantly gain 5,000 income. These are all sounding really great. Yeah, I'm super keen. I am super keen. I've been looking for a reason to play a Scarbrand again, to be honest. Kind of wanted to have one last run before like the DLC comes whenever it does. So, yeah, sounds great. Alright, unusual locations, new mini feature. This last feature is something small, something a bit different, and unlike what we've done elsewhere in the game. It's also the section you're least going to want spoilers for, as you can discover the content yourselves throughout your campaign. So what is it? Well, I'm a huge fan of world-building content in games, especially if they have lore as rich as Warhammer does. And from a gameplay perspective, I've always wanted to make the world feel a bit more alive. This is hopefully a start to doing more for both of these things, and I want to keep working on those things going forward. Okay. With the addition of this feature, there are now various unique and perhaps strange locations that can appear on your settlements. Some will be cults, some various orders, others perhaps entirely different. None of them linked to any existing factions. They'll satiate themselves at your settlement as a building at various points throughout your campaign, and come with effects in many cases trade-offs, traits, items, and otherwise. Something akin to landmarks, but bringing more interactivity, uniqueness, and flavor to your campaigns. Certain instances of these unusual locations will only appear in certain places. Others can appear in many places, and you'll be able to remove them if you want, much like you can other unwanted visitors. There are 20 in total so far, and I'd like to add more going forward. As this batch are mostly focused on the old world and the races therein, I'll leave you with two simpler examples just so you can have a rough idea of what to expect. In the first example, you've discovered the grave of a Grail Knight, well kept and providing some relief of corruption in the nearby area. Those who visit the site pay their respects may gain a unique trait. Second example sees you having to make a decision as one involved in the politics of the Empire. This cult offers benefits if you're willing to manage its corrupting influence. Oh, interesting. So the Bretonian one gives you control, reduces corruption for adjacent provinces too. And if your control is 75 or above, you get the chance of getting the trait when the character's in that location. It also provides you a reliquary of, a reliquary and a Grail Knight unit as a garrison. That's pretty cool. And then the Grand Illuminator's residence. Oh, the Cult of Illumination. Awesome. This one gives you extra fealty with elect accounts and more prestige, but it gives you undivided corruption. Then, if the corruption is more, you get even further. This is great. This is great. Yeah, this is awesome. That is actually really, really cool. So we did get briefly told something about this, and I was like, oh yeah, landmark system, always great, more landmarks. But no, this is actually exceeding expectations. This is really cool. I'm really surprised. I've been saying that a lot lately, but I've been kind of worried that since we're waiting for a DLC for so long that there's not going to be a lot going on for it. But this actually does sound very, very good. Alright, so we do have a few more icons there. So Skaven Blight, Marienburg, Chaos Cult. Overall, pretty good. And the idea is like this is supposed to be, as you progress through your campaign, these will pop up. I like that. I actually really like that. I can't wait to see how they work, and I want to see, because obviously right now they've said it's only in the old world, but if it starts spreading out into other locations, that's going to be really good for flavor. I can already imagine some for the Tomb Kings and for just like the Lizard Men and so on. This is sounding really good. But we do have a final note here, shaping future updates. Hopefully you've enjoyed this overview of some of the main content coming in patch 5.2, and hopefully it's as exciting for all of you as it is for us. For me personally, it's been a blast making it. I'm looking forward to speaking to you all more going forward with our future updates. Let us know if you want more developer diaries in this format. Yes, why would you ask that question? Like seriously, yes, this is what people have been asking for years. I mentioned at the start you can help us shape our future updates. So can you do that? It's simple, really. We have a wonderful team here at Creative Assembly who are dedicated to gathering your feedback from all platforms where you share it. It may not always be visible, but I can promise you it does reach us developers. We will continue looking to action the feedback that you present us with through updates, fixes, and improvements, but of course with the caveat of development feasibility that I mentioned earlier. If you'd like to share your thoughts on what you'd like to see next, then please do so. You can do this in any number of places, such as our official forums, the Total War Discord, though our teams are everywhere and they see it all eventually. Thanks so much for reading. I look forward to when you can get your hands on 5.2, in particular seeing your comments and feedback, not only this, but the future ones too. I mean, yeah, this sounds great. Overall, it sounds much more than what was expected, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't expecting this much stuff. In all honesty, I was just expecting a cult rework. The dwarf stuff is an added bonus. This mini landmarks thing is great too. And to be honest, I'm really excited just to play around with the cafe stuff too. Finally fixing up the cafe caravans is going to be fantastic. Oh boy, overall, really good. I'm really happy. Hopefully everything works on launch. We don't know exactly when this patch is dropping just yet, but yeah, you know, time will tell. Time will tell. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's have a bit of discussion. Hopefully the timestamps work. They should be in the description if not, and I'll see you all again very, very soon, guys. Have a nice day. I'm going to go shopping. I need to really sort out a shop.